Hey there. Welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. I am glad you found your way here. I want to try something a little different tonight. Imagine it is 2 a.m. The house is quiet. The world is asleep, but you are wide awake. The blue light from your phone is the only thing illuminating the room, casting these long, weird shadows on the wall. You are doom-scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, watching strangers live these perfectly curated lives, and in the back of your mind, there is this gnawing, heavy feeling in your chest. It is the ghost of everything you did not do today. Maybe it is that term paper that was due 3 days ago, and you haven't even opened a Google Doc. Maybe it is that quarterly report for work that is inching closer to a terrifying deadline, and you haven't typed a single word. Or maybe it is something personal, like that copy of Atomic Habits sitting on your nightstand gathering dust since January, or the gym membership you are paying for but haven't used in 6 months. We start every year hell, every Monday morning, with this surge of main character energy. We map out the goals, we buy the aesthetic planners, we visualize the success, but then, fast forward to Sunday night, and we realize we spent the last 48 hours binge-watching a show we don't even like that much, just to avoid facing reality. We know exactly what we need to do. We know the consequences are coming. Yet, we choose the path of least resistance. We choose the dopamine hit of a video game, the numbness of social media, or the distraction of productive procrastination, like reorganizing your bookshelf instead of writing your thesis. And then, when the deadline is breathing down our necks, we panic. We pull an all-nighter, fueled by caffeine and self-loathing, and we churn out work that is barely passable. And we promise ourselves, never again. Until the next time. If this sounds like you, I want you to know something important. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are just stuck in a biological loop that hasn't evolved as fast as society has. We call this procrastination, but that word feels too clinical for how much it hurts. It is not just delaying a task. It is a battle against yourself. Research suggests that around 25% of the workforce suffers from chronic procrastination, wasting hours every single day. But honestly, I think that number is low. In a world designed to distract us, I think almost all of us feel like we belong in that 25%. So, the big question is, why do we do this to ourselves? And how do we stop the cycle without burning out? To find the answer, we have to look at the hardware inside your skull. We are going to dive into some insights from Kelly McGonigal's book, The Willpower Instinct, and combine it with the psychology of why we delay. Here is the truth. Your brain is a dopamine addict. When you are faced with a choice between doing something difficult that offers a long-term reward like studying for a degree or saving for retirement, versus doing something easy that offers instant gratification, your brain is wired to choose the easy path. This isn't a character flaw, it is survival. Think about your ancestors. Thousands of years ago, life was about immediate survival. If you saw food, you ate it immediately, because you didn't know when the next meal was coming. If you saw a predator, you ran. You lived in a state of immediate return. There was no concept of a 5-year career plan or a 401k. Your biology prioritized short-term safety and pleasure because the long-term was not guaranteed. The problem is, we still have that caveman software running on modern hardware. We are living in an immediate gratification environment. Netflix, DoorDash, one-click ordering, but our goals require delayed gratification. When you choose to watch a funny reel instead of working, your brain releases dopamine. It feels good. It feels safe. and that chemical hit reinforces the behavior, training you to do it again and again. We have become slaves to our own biochemistry. The French philosopher Jules Payot once said something that hits hard. He said, effectively, that the goal of the vast majority of people is to go through life using their brains as little as possible. It sounds harsh, but think about it. Our brains consume a massive amount of energy. Biologically, we are designed to conserve energy, not burn it on complex, abstract tasks unless we absolutely have to. This creates a massive internal conflict. In the book Switch, by Chip and Dan Heath, and originally conceptualized by Jonathan Haidt, there is a brilliant metaphor for this: the elephant and the rider. Imagine your brain is divided into two parts. First, you have the rider. This is your rational side, your prefrontal cortex. The rider is logical, analytical, and plans for the future. The rider says, I need to wake up at 6 a.m. to finish this project so I can get a promotion. But underneath the rider is the elephant. The elephant represents your emotions, your impulses, and your instincts. The elephant is huge, powerful, and driven by immediate feelings. It wants comfort, safety, and ice cream. Here is the catch. The rider is tiny compared to the elephant. When the rider and the elephant agree, everything is great. You flow through your day. But the moment they disagree, like when the alarm goes off at 6 a.m., the rider loses. The rider says, get up. But the elephant says, no, the bed is warm and the world is scary. And because the elephant has 6 tons of weight on its side, you hit snooze. You drift back to sleep. The emotional side overpowers the rational side. Most standard productivity advice fails because it only talks to the rider. We buy planners, we make to-do lists, we download time-tracking apps. These are all tools for the rider. But if you haven't learned how to tame the elephant, none of that matters. You can have the best plan in the world, but if your emotional self doesn't want to move, you are not going anywhere. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It is an emotion regulation problem. We are letting the elephant drive the car on autopilot. So, how do we fix this? How do we stop the elephant from running off a cliff? Many people try to brute force it. They try to hustle harder or shame themselves into working. But shame is a terrible fuel source. It burns dirty and ruins the engine. If you want to eliminate procrastination, we have to stop treating symptoms and start treating the root cause. We have to learn to speak the elephant's language. To do that, we need a framework to understand what is actually happening in those moments of hesitation. We need to dissect the narrative playing in your head. In the next part of this conversation, we are going to break down a specific psychological model that helps us rewrite the script. We are going to look at why we freeze up and how a simple shift in perspective can get the elephant moving in the right direction without a fight. So, we know the elephant, your emotions, is powerful. But if you want to stop letting it run your life, you need to dissect exactly what is happening in your brain during that split second when you decide to put things off. To eliminate procrastination, we have to treat the root cause, not just the symptoms. And the root lies in 3 distinct layers: your awareness, your emotions, and your actions. Let's start with awareness. If you cannot spot the moment you are lying to yourself, you cannot change the outcome. In the Willpower Instinct, there is a fantastic framework adapted from cognitive behavioral therapy called the ABCDE model. It sounds technical, but it is actually the blueprint of your self-sabotage. Here is how it works. A stands for the activating event. Let's say you have a major presentation due in 3 days. That is the event. B stands for beliefs. This is the internal narrative you tell yourself. You look at the calendar and think, oh, I have 3 whole days. Today is just day 1. I can relax tonight and grind it out tomorrow. C stands for consequences. Because of that belief, you play video games all night. The consequence is that now you only have 2 days, the pressure spikes, and the quality of your work drops. Usually, the procrastination cycle stops there. You end up at C, feeling guilty, stressed, and promising yourself you will do better next time. But you never do, because you never challenged B, the belief. To break the cycle, you need D, disputing. You have to actively argue with your own brain. When that thought pops up, I have plenty of time. You need to catch it and say, no, that is a lie. If I wait, I am just borrowing happiness from tomorrow to pay for it with anxiety today. This leads to E, the effect. By changing the narrative, you change the action. I vividly remember learning this lesson the hard way back in middle school. My academic performance that year tanked so hard that my parents got called into the principal's office. The problem wasn't that I wasn't smart, it was that I was a master procrastinator. I would come home from school, throw my backpack in the corner, and immediately jump onto the computer or go outside to skate. My logic was always, I'll do my homework after dinner. But after dinner, I was tired, or my favorite show was on. I would end up scribbling answers at midnight, half asleep, or worse, scrambling to copy my friend's homework in homeroom 5 minutes before the bell rang. In contrast, my little sister, who was only in the 4th grade at the time, was wired completely differently. She would come home, grab a snack, and immediately sit at the kitchen table to finish her worksheets. Her friends would come to the door, asking her to come out and play, and she would tell them, not yet. One day, I asked her, why are you such a nerd? Why don't you just come play? I will never forget what a 10-year-old told me. She said, I don't love homework. I actually hate it. But if I play while the homework is unfinished, I feel guilty. If I finish it now, I can play for the rest of the night and actually enjoy it. That hit me like a ton of bricks. My sister wasn't disciplined because she loved school. She was disciplined because she loved her freedom. She realized that procrastination doesn't create free time. It creates contaminated time. Every moment you spend relaxing while a deadline hangs over your head is a moment tainted by low-level anxiety. You are not truly resting. You are just hiding. Once you have the awareness part down, we have to look at the second layer, emotion. You need to stop letting the emotional elephant crush the rational rider. Generally speaking, procrastination stems from 3 specific emotional triggers. The first trigger is the fear of failure, often disguised as perfectionism. This is a huge one for our generation. You might tell yourself, I am not starting yet because I need to do more research, or I need the conditions to be perfect before I begin. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel, but you convince yourself you need a better camera first. Maybe you have to write a speech, but you are terrified of looking stupid, so you delay writing it to avoid facing the possibility that it might be bad. This is what psychologists call the spotlight effect. We overestimate how much other people care about what we do. We curate our lives on Instagram and LinkedIn because we are terrified of being seen as flawed. But here is the reality check. Nobody cares as much as you do. The world is too busy worrying about itself. There is a saying in the tech world that we need to adopt. Done is better than perfect. A messy first draft that actually exists is infinitely better than a perfect masterpiece that only exists in your imagination. Perfectionism is just procrastination in a tuxedo. It is a defense mechanism to protect your ego. You have to give yourself permission to produce garbage. Write a bad essay. Record a cringe video. Once you start, the fear dissolves. The antidote to anxiety is action. The second emotional trigger is that the task feels too difficult or overwhelming. This usually happens when the gap between your current skill level and the challenge feels too wide. Imagine you have to write a screenplay or code a complex app from scratch. You sit down, stare at the blank screen, and your brain screams, "I can't do this." It feels like standing at the bottom of Mount Everest without any gear. When a task feels too big, the elephant panics and looks for an escape route, usually straight to TikTok. But here is the secret. You don't need to know how to climb the whole mountain. You just need to know where to put your foot for the first step. We often think we need motivation to take action. We sit around waiting to feel inspired. But that is backward. Action creates motivation. The momentum comes after you start, not before. When you are paralyzed by the size of a task, your only job is to break it down until it is laughably small. Don't write a book. Write one paragraph. Don't clean the whole garage. Just pick up one box. However, there is a third trigger. Sometimes the task isn't scary and it isn't hard. Sometimes the task is just incredibly, painfully boring. And this is where our modern addiction to dopamine becomes our worst enemy. This is where we have to learn how to hack our own biology to make the mundane feel exciting. This brings us to the third and final emotional trigger, and honestly, it is the most common one. Sometimes you are not afraid of failing. You are not overwhelmed by the difficulty. You are just bored out of your mind. The task at hand simply does not light you up. Maybe you know reading that non-fiction book will make you smarter, but your brain is craving the fast-paced stimulation of a video game. Maybe you know you need to go to the gym because your health depends on it, but the couch is right there, and it is so comfortable. Facing this kind of procrastination leads to a feeling of apathy. It breeds laziness. In part 1, we talked about how dopamine can be a villain, the chemical that keeps you doomscrolling at 2 a.m. But here is the plot twist. Dopamine is also the hero. You just have to change how you deploy it. If dopamine is the fuel that drives the elephant, you can use it to lead the elephant exactly where you want it to go. Behavioral scientists call this temptation bundling. The concept is simple but brilliant. You take a behavior you should do but struggle to start, and you bundle it with a behavior you love to do. If you find reading incredibly dry and boring, stop trying to force yourself to read in a silent, sterile room. Instead, bundle it with an environment you love. Go to that overpriced, aesthetic coffee shop with the jazz music and the oat milk lattes. Tell yourself, I only get to drink this expensive coffee if I am reading this book. Suddenly, the brain associates the boring task with a high dopamine reward. If you hate doing laundry or cleaning your apartment, do not do it in silence. Put on your favorite true crime podcast or that audiobook you have been dying to listen to. Make a rule. You are only allowed to listen to that show while you are cleaning. Now, you are not doing chores. You are listening to a story, and your hands just happen to be busy. You are hacking your own biology, using the elephant's desire for pleasure to power the rider's goals. You will find that the tasks you used to dread actually become the most enjoyable parts of your day because they are the only times you allow yourself that specific indulgence. So, we have identified the procrastination loops. We have learned to spot the ABCDE narrative in our heads. We have learned to manage the fear of imperfection and how to bundle our temptations. Now, we arrive at the final frontier: action. I tell my friends this all the time. Insight without action is just entertainment. You can listen to this podcast, you can read every self-help book on the shelf, and you can understand the neuroscience of your brain perfectly. But if you do not physically move, nothing changes. Success isn't about thinking the right thoughts. It is about proving those thoughts through behavior. To win this war, you have to clear the battlefield. You need to design an environment where the elephant has no choice but to cooperate. This means removing the friction for good habits and increasing the friction for bad ones. When you decide it is time to work, you must go scorched earth on distractions. We live in an attention economy where billion-dollar companies are engineering algorithms specifically designed to steal your focus. You cannot fight that with willpower alone. You will lose. You have to fight it with barriers. Put your phone in another room. Turn off the Wi-Fi if you don't need it. Use tools like the Forest app, where staying focused grows a virtual tree, and picking up your phone kills it. It sounds silly, but gamifying your focus works because it speaks to the elephant's desire for immediate feedback. But what happens when you have done all that the phone is away, the coffee is ready, and you still feel that magnetic pull to do literally anything else? You are staring at the screen, and your hand starts twitching, wanting to open a new tab to check Reddit or the news. There is a primitive but effective technique for this moment. It is called the pattern interrupt. When you feel that urge to drift away, I want you to literally say the word stop out loud. You don't have to scream it if you are in a public library, but say it firmly. Stop. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but hearing your own voice issue a command breaks the trance. It snaps you out of the subconscious autopilot and puts the rider back in the driver's seat. It is a command to the elephant. We are not doing that today. Treat your attention like a muscle. Every time you feel the urge to procrastinate and you choose to work anyway, you are doing a rep. You are getting stronger. And every time you give in, you are training your brain to be weaker. So here is the reality check I want to leave you with tonight. Procrastination is not just about missing a deadline or getting a bad grade. It is about the slow, quiet tragedy of a life unlived. Every time you say, I will do it tomorrow, you are making a bet that tomorrow will come, and that tomorrow you will be a better version of yourself. But the tomorrow you is just the today you with one less day of time. We act like we have infinite time. We act like we can push our dreams, our passions, and our best work to some imaginary future date when we will feel ready. But someday is not a day of the week. The only time you have is right now. The only moment you can control is this one. So I have a challenge for you. I don't want you to just click off this video and watch the next recommended clip. I want you to close this app. I want you to pick that one thing you have been avoiding, that one scary, boring, or overwhelming task that has been haunting you, and I want you to do it for just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. You don't have to finish it. You just have to start. Because once you start, the heavy lifting is done. The elephant is moving. If this conversation resonated with you, let me know in the comments. What is the one elephant in your room that you are finally going to tackle? Let's hold each other accountable down there. Thank you for spending this time with me. It is late, and you have work to do. Go make it happen. I will see you in the next one.